The Qing Dynasty, which reigned over China from 1644 to 1912, stands as the final imperial dynasty in the nation's long and storied history. This period was marked by significant cultural and political achievements, as well as considerable challenges. The Qing Dynasty, founded by the Manchu ethnic group, presided over a vast empire that expanded China's borders and saw the flourishing of arts and culture. However, despite its grandeur and influence, the Qing Dynasty faced numerous internal and external pressures that ultimately led to its downfall. The complexity of these challenges and their impact on Chinese society make the story of the Qing Dynasty's collapse a compelling study in the dynamics of imperial rule and its limits. The Qing Dynasty was established by the Manchu people, a tongistic ethnic group from its northeast region of China, in the mid-17th century. The dynasty came to power after the fall of the Ming Dynasty, with the Manchus capitalizing on the internal turmoil and peasant revolts that plagued Ming China. By 1644, the Manchu leader, Nurhaci, had consolidated power, and his successors expanded the Qing Empire significantly. The Qing Dynasty rise was characterized by its ability to integrate diverse ethnic groups, including Han Chinese, into its administrative and social structures, thus establishing a multi-ethnic empire. This consolidation of power was marked by military prowess, strategic alliances, and effective governance, setting the stage for a new era in Chinese history. Corruption and inefficiency within the Qing administration were critical factors in the dynasty's decline. Over time, the Qing bureaucracy became increasingly plagued by corruption as officials engaged in embezzlement and bribery, which eroded the effectiveness of governance. This corruption manifested in various ways, including the misallocation of state resources and the inability to address pressing issues such as infrastructure decay and public health crises. The bureaucratic inefficiency was also marked by a convoluted and often ineffective administrative structure, which struggled to manage the vast and diverse empire effectively. This mismanagement created a disconnect between the central government and the provincial administrations, further exacerbating problems and undermining the Qing's ability to respond to internal and external challenges. The Qing dynasty faced several socioeconomic issues that contributed to its downfall. Widespread poverty was a persistent problem, exacerbated by overpopulation and agrarian distress. The agrarian economy, which was the backbone of Qing China, suffered from recurrent natural disasters such as floods and droughts, which led to poor harvests and famine. The growing population placed additional strain on land and resources, leading to increased competition for dwindling agricultural productivity. The situation created significant social unrest, with impoverished peasants becoming increasingly disillusioned with the ruling elites. The resulting discontent fueled peasant uprisings, such as the White Lotus Rebellion from 1796 all the way until 1804, and the more extensive Taiping Rebellion, 1850 to 1864, which not only challenged Qing authority, but also further strained the dynasty's already strained resources. Several major internal rebellions significantly weakened the Qing dynasty and contributed to its eventual collapse. The Taiping Rebellion, led by Hong Shashan, was one of the deadliest conflicts in Chinese history, resulting in the deaths of an estimated 20 to 30 million people. The rebellion, which sought to establish a new Christian-based kingdom, effectively challenged Qing control over large swaths of southern China and drained the empire's military and economic resources. The Boxer Rebellion from 1899 to 1901, another significant uprising, was driven by anti-foreign and anti-colonial sentiments, with the Boxers targeting foreign nations and Chinese Christians. This rebellion not only further destabilized the Qing regime, but also led to an internal military intervention that imposed further humiliating terms on China. Both uprisings exposed the Qing dynasty's weakening grip on power and its inability to effectively manage internal dissent. The Opium Wars, lasting from 1839 to 1842 and again from 1856 to 1860, were pivotal in undermining the Qing dynasty's authority and sovereignty. The First Opium War resulted from the British attempt to forcefully expand their opium trade in China, leading to a military confrontation with the Qing government. The Treaty of Nanking, signed in 1842, marked the beginning of a series of unequal treaties that favored foreign powers at China's expense. This treaty ceded Hong Kong to Britain and opened several Chinese ports to foreign trade, further eroding Qing control. The Second Opium War exacerbated these issues, resulting in the Treaty of Tianjin and the Convention of Peking, which expanded foreign privileges and legalized the opium trade. These treaties not only humiliated the Qing Dynasty, but also severely compromised China's territorial integrity and economic autonomy, deepening the dynasty's vulnerabilities. Foreign encroachment played a significant role in the Qing Dynasty's decline. In the late 19th century, they saw increased foreign intervention in China, with Western powers and Japan asserting their influence through territorial acquisitions and economic concessions. The Japanese invasion of Taiwan in 1895, following the First Sino-Japanese War, marked a significant loss for the Qing government and highlighted the rising power of Japan. Additionally, foreign powers established spheres of influence in various Chinese ports and regions, further undermining Qing sovereignty. This intrusion not only weakened the Qing's regime control over its territories, but also exacerbated the dynasty's internal problems, as the government struggled to manage both external pressures and internal unrest. The economic exploitation of China by foreign powers further contributed to the Qing dynasty's decline. The imposition of unfavorable trade items and the control of key ports by foreign powers created significant trade imbalances. For instance, the British demand for Chinese tea, silk, and porcelain was met by increasing opium exports to China, leading to a significant outflow of silver and exacerbating economic instability. Foreign powers also imposed extraterritorial rights, allowing their nationals to live in China without being subject to local laws, which undermined Qing legal authority. This exploitation not only drained China's wealth, but also highlighted the Qing government's inability to negotiate and enforce fair trade practices, further weakening its position domestically and internationally. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the Qing dynasty attempted to modernize its institutions and military through a series of reforms, most notably the self-strengthening movement and the 100 Days Reform. The self-strengthening movement, initiated in the 1860s, aimed at modernizing China's military and industrial capabilities by adopting Western technology and methods. This included the establishment of arsenals, shipyards, and railways, as well as efforts to reform the military. However, these efforts were hampered by bureaucratic inertia, corruption, and a lack of genuine commitment to comprehensive change. The 100 Days Reform of 1898, spearheaded by Emperor Gongzhou and reformer Kang Yue, sought to enact sweeping changes, including political, educational, and economic reforms. The program aimed to modernize China by establishing a constitutional monarchy, improving the educational system, and promoting industrial development. Despite its ambitious goals, the reform faced strong oppositions from conservative elements within the Qing court, including Empress Dowager Cixi, who viewed these changes as a threat to the established order. The conservative backlash led to the arrest of former leaders and dismantling of many of the reforms, demonstrating the deep resistance to modernization within the Qing regime and highlighting limitations of its reform efforts. The 1911 Revolution, also known as the Xinhai Revolution, was the decisive event that led to the fall of the Qing dynasty. The revolution was driven by a growing sense of nationalism and dissatisfaction within the Qing government's inability to address both internal and external challenges. Key revolutionary leaders, such as Sun Yat-sen, played a crucial role in mobilizing support for the overthrow of the Qing regime. The revolution began with the Wuchang Uprising in October 10, 1911, which quickly spread across China as provincial armies and local militias joined the cause. The revolutionary movement sought to establish a new political order based on democratic principles and national sovereignty, contrasting sharply with the imperial system that had ruled China for centuries. On January 1, 1912, Sun Yat-sen proclaimed the establishment of the Republic of China, marking the formal end of the Qing dynasty. The Qing government, facing widespread rebellion and unable to sustain its authority, was forced to negotiate. The revolution culminated in the abdication of the last Qing emperor, Puyi, and the dissolution of the imperial system, signaling the end of over 2 millennia of imperial rule in China. The abdiction of Emperor Puyi on February 12, 1912, marked the official end of the Qing dynasty and imperial rule in China. Puyi, who was only 6 years old at the time of his abdiction, was a symbolic figurehead rather than a ruling monarch. His abdication followed intense negotiations between revolutionary leaders and Qing officials, reflecting the collapse of the Qing's regime's authority and the inevitable shift towards a republican government. Despite his removal from power, Puyi continued to be a symbolic figure in Chinese politics for a time, but his abdication represented the definitive end of the Qing Dynasty and the transition to a new political era in China. The transition from imperial rule to the Republic of China was a complex and tumultuous process. The fall of the Qing Dynasty left a power vacuum and significant challenges for the new republican government, which struggled to establish stability and legitimacy. The early years of the Republic were marked by political fragmentation, regional warlordism, and ongoing social unrest. Despite these challenges, the Republican government made efforts to modernize China's political and economic systems and to establish a new national identity. The legacy of Qing-era institutions and practices continued to influence the early Republican period, as China grappled with the remnants of its imperial past while attempting to forge a new path forward. The Qing Dynasty's cultural and historical legacy remains significant in modern Chinese culture. Qing art, literature, and architecture continue to be appreciated and studied for their aesthetic and historical value. The dynasty's contributions to Chinese cultural heritage includes distinctive art forms, such as traditional Chinese painting and porcelain, as well as architectural achievements like the Summer Palace and the Old Summer Palace. The Qing Dynasty's fall also marked a shift in historical narratives, with the collapse of imperial rule being viewed as a pivotal moment in the development of modern Chinese identity and nationalism. The fall of the Qing Dynasty had profound long-term consequences for China. The collapse of the imperial system paved the way for the rise of nationalist sentiments and the eventual establishment of the People's Republic of China in 1949. The early Republican period was a time of political and social upheaval, but it laid the groundwork for the emergence of the Communist Party, which capitalized on the discontent and aspirations of the Chinese people. The transition from Qing rule to a communist government marked a dramatic shift in China's political landscape, shaping the nation's trajectory throughout the 20th century and into the present day now. The legacy of the Qing Dynasty, therefore, is intertwined with China's modernization and its evolution into a major global power.